It's been 80 years of Batman, Detective Comics, and all that. 80 years have come and gone, and let's see how the next 80 years for Batman is going to be if we make it that long. So, I could technically talk about Batman Detective Comics 1000. However, I don't read the individual issues. I only collect them in trade paperbacks. And yeah. Plus, I know it's a collection of stories from other writers like Kevin Smith and everything. But I wanted to talk about a different Batman comic. Batman White Knight. You see, Batman White Knight is the first graphic novel published under their DC Black Label initiative. You see, the Black Label is an imprint of DC Comics. Here's the Black Label right here. It's part of this imprint of comics that consists of original limited series stuff, and reprints of books previously under other imprints, specifically Elseworld. The imprint intends to present the traditional DC Universe characters for a more mature audience with standalone prestige format series. And the first official title of this imprint was Batman Damned, which was shipped on September 19, 2018. Now, theoretically, this sounds like the biggest idea they could do, where they want to present these stories under for a more mature audience. Hold on, let me just adjust the camera. Where they go ahead and showcase all these different interpretations of characters, and they would go ahead and basically offer these new designs and characters. Like right now we got Batman Damned, we got Batman Last Night on Earth, Superman Year One by Frank Miller, which we all know that's going to end pretty badly. The Other History of the DC Universe, and Batman and Jeff Johns imprint Batman Three Jokers, which is the one story I've been hearing is part of the continuity of DC's Rebirth and New 52, primarily because this is supposed to be the storyline that ends the Three Joker initiative that Jeff Johns introduced in the Darkseid War. So I'm wondering why on earth is this in the why is this under the Black Label? Like, I get it's the Joker, but still. However, as I was saying, because of this, Batman the White Knight was put on the Black Label imprint. And here's the thing, they started re-releasing all the content they used to have, like All-Star Superman, New Frontier, Kingdom Come, Frank Miller's Ronin, Batman Year One, Watchmen. They're planning to put Red Sun, and that just always kept bugging me a little bit. Like, this is basically Elseworlds. This is basically the Elseworld stories, just called under a Black Label imprint. I don't know if they're going to really go back. And most of the stories seem to be all about Batman. Basically, everyone's DC Comics' wet dream, which failed in the New 52. But since they got this now, they could get away with it. So the writer and artist, this artist and writer wrote and drew the entire comic of White Knight. Sean Murphy was wanting to do something different with this Batman story. Basically, his core premise was to reverse the roles of the Joker and Batman by portraying Joker as a hero and Batman as the villain. And it was supposed to depict a more realistic take on Gotham, where crime could not be stopped with a fist. This led to turning Joker into a politician character who's using the intelligence charisma to win the people of Gotham over. And DC had no problems changing certain stuff at the timeline of Batman's history. However, adult content such as nudity and profanity that Murphy had intended to include were not permitted. So now with the sequel being made, Curse of the White Knight, it's going to most likely feature that if they keep it under the, the DC Black Label imprint. Also, this story features a lot of Easter eggs and plot lines that will sound very familiar. One is using Joker's name as Jack Napier, which is a reference to Tim Burton's Batman, in which the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson, shared that name. And then they also bring in the 1989 movie, and Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy also inspired the design of the Batmobile in White Knight. And one of the subplots is involving one of the story's antagonists to freeze ray the city portion of Gotham City, which is a reference to Batman and Robin, and we all know how that was. So, yeah. Why am I talking about this as my 80th anniversary special for Batman? Well, it's because this offered a very intriguing thing I noticed about this story and about Batman as a character, and also that could tie into Batman in the main DC universe along with a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, basically the Joker is cured of his insanity because he's forced eaten a bunch of pills by Batman, and Joker then had to explain that like Batman and him is like this circle that never ends, a cycle that never ends, and yeah. Also, one of the major things they also introduced to this, he also said, Joker goes ahead and claims that Gotham City's greatest villain is Batman, and Batman's just relentlessly beating him up while the GCPD is just like, yeah, okay. And Joker says that he needs him, and yeah, Joker is force fed a bunch of pills. Yeah, he's force fed a bunch of pills, and yeah, and then someone had recorded all this and showcased this into the entire world, damaging Batman's reputation. And there is something that's a little familiar to Frank Miller's style when it came to The Dark Knight Returns, is that we would cut away to these discussions by two people from Gotham Insider, where they're discussing about the whole thing and debating. These two people are debating about the whole thing. One is this old person who's really stuck in the past, while and the woman is trying to be more like, this also needs to be held accountable to the GCPD of how they handled the whole thing. And, yeah. So, it's revealed that the reason why Bruce Wayne is, well, being more aggressive is because Alfred is dying, and he had to compromise a bit to help out with, Mr. Freeze and, a staple Batman villain to go ahead and basically, try to save Alfred. Yeah, that doesn't work out so well. And, yeah. And Jack Napier is filing his legal case. He looks like he's going to file charges. They try to say that he's really guilty in all this, and it turns out he learned how to uncuff himself with his intelligence. And yeah, they try, and like when I first read this story, I was initially hesitant because of its artwork, but when I read it more and more, I actually started like liking this art style. And yeah, but Joker is cleared of all charges after he reveals a whole bunch of stuff, and yeah, the Gotham Insider reports about this, is getting pissed off about it. Like, one says like they're both agreeing that they're skeptical on this, but yeah, she's trying to say like it's all come down to evidence and everything. So there is one aspect that people did see coming about this comic. It's where we get introduced to Harley Quinn, the Suicide Squad version of her. But it turns out that's not actually Harley Quinn. The original Harley Quinn left Joker following his torture of Jason Todd when he became more obsessed about Batman than he became obsessed about her. And yeah, basically, Harley Quinn is actually the Jester Harley Quinzel. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a little complicated. And the Suicide Squad version of her is someone else that just happens to look like her. And yeah. So yeah, Batman has been forced to compromise a lot of stuff about himself, and yeah, it's where it reaches this point where she was revealed Jason Todd just disappeared, and Batman is just trying his best not to kill him. And yeah, the one major difference they did put in this story is that Jason Todd was the original Robin, not Dick Grayson, age whatever. Yeah, I had to do that for giggles. Okay, so yeah, Jason Todd was the first Robin in this continuity, not Dick Grayson. So that leads to very interesting ideas and angles about all this. And one of the major things about this story that I noticed is it's about Batman. Like, throughout the story, as Joker continues to show more that he's becoming more and more of a hero while doing some horrible, shady things on the side, such as controlling all of Gotham's villains with a mind control substance using Clayface's dust, whatever, and the Mad Hatter's technology, and then afterwards that all goes to hell as well. When the people start to rally more behind the Joker, Jack Napier, Batman just seems to be more and more going crazy at the idea that he's cured and that he's actually sane and how he's a villain and he always will be a villain. And that just made me realize something about Batman as both this version and as the Batman in the DC Rebirth continuity. Batman doesn't believe in redemption. Oh, he may preach about how he believes in redemption. He may say he believes that people can redeem themselves. But then I realized, yeah, Batman doesn't believe in redemption. Like, near the end of these series, let me find it. Let me see. Jack Napier, when his medicine starts to lose control and his effects are going out, this is what Batman says when he gives an ultimatum. When Jack Napier says that he needs his help, and Batman says, I will always help Gotham, but I want a full confession from you about everything. How you attacked the financial district, how you destroyed your own library, how you're ultimately responsible for Neo Joker. I want you to explain how you exploited the legal system to gain your freedom, how you lied about Arkham and the police and all your escapes, and I want you to explain that regardless of the evidence, regardless of your appeal, you've always been a murderer, and that in spite of everything that's happened in the last year, you'll always be Joker. Yeah. This Batman, and probably all the other Batmans of before, they don't believe in redemption. Oh, they may say they believe in redemption, but there's a difference between saying it and actually believing it. Like, maybe Batman himself, Bruce Wayne in the DC main timeline, does honestly believe in redemption, but he kind of says it, but at the same time, part of his mind doesn't really believe it. Like, let's see, like, it makes sense, like, maybe during his whole time being Batman has deteriorated his mind subconsciously about the term of redemption. Like, he at first believed people could be redeemed through the system, but as time went on, like, that slowly eroded to the point that he practically has become just as guilty as the villains he beats up. Like, he's not really saving anybody. He doesn't actually believe in the villains having a chance of redemption. He's lying to himself, basically. Because if he admits that he's wrong about redemption, then he falls apart, basically, in my mind. And the biggest aspect I noticed regarding the story was how politicians exploit Batman's actions and everything, and the destruction of public property and the Batman Trust Fund they do, where they exploit all the damages and basically extort people, which means Batman's not helping anybody. So, yeah. Like, Jack Napier did things wrong, but he was actually getting crap done around here, unlike most politicians nowadays. But at the same time, he was doing things that were shady and everything. But, Batman is like, he says he believes in redemption. He doesn't really believe it. And the other evidence is from actually the Timverse of DC Universe. the DC animated universe. When, okay, I remember this episode. It was the Batman animated series. It was about Penguin, about how he's reformed, and Batman came to him and basically threatened that he's always going to watch him, how he doesn't believe him, and he was so close to getting redemption, but then he was manipulated, and this relationship was at first a lie, and only to realize it was true at one point before everything, but it was too late to fix it. But yeah, that's when you also realize Batman may have never believed in redemption. Like, yeah, this really made me give an eye-opener about Batman as a character. That Batman, not just this one, but all the Batmans we've seen, they don't really necessarily believe in redemption. They don't believe that person can fully redeem themselves in his eyes. And he's just more like deluding himself. Like, if he doesn't admit that, because, like, if he admits there's no such thing as redemption in his eyes, everything falls apart for him. He becomes just as guilty as the villains he beats up and locks away. Because if people heard that Batman didn't believe in redemption, that he's just locking people up and doesn't believe in redemption as much as he says he does, they're just gonna say this one question everyone asks: then kill them. Why don't you just kill them? Like, you admitted you don't believe in redemption, so why not just kill them? You don't believe in it, you might as well just be the Punisher. By the way, they actually introduced a Batman Punisher in the Batman Who Laughs series. Yeah. But yeah, so yeah. So really, this graphic novel was a big eye opener for me. It's probably one of my favorite Batman stories because it offers a deconstruction of Batman as a character and offers a new look of how Batman works. In fact, in my fanfiction story, Multiverse, I actually introduced that concept of how Batman doesn't believe in redemption. And yeah. And ultimately this would break Batman, and Eric just puts him out of his misery by getting the gun that killed Batman's parents and just finishing what Joe Chill started. Yeah, it's supposed to be a dark, morbid scene, so yeah, there's that reveal. But anyways, the other aspect of this is, I don't know how that works regarding the senilism of making, of the insanity of the Joker. Like, curing the Joker's insanity like that, like, it just felt really weird. I know it's a comic book and I should take these with a grain of salt, but they said they wanted to make a realistic take on this. But yeah, here's the other thing. That always gave, when I was reading this, I was like, what would Batman do in the main DC universe if Joker went sane? Remember, this ties into my redemption theory, how Batman doesn't really believe in it. Would he really believe the Joker is redeemed, that he's fixed, that he's sane? Or would he just go and babble on about how, oh, but he must be up to something. There's no way he could redeem himself like this after everything he's done. It's like, come on, Batman. You preached for years how you won't kill the Joker because you believe you could save him in some way, or you'll just be as bad as him. And you think he can be fixed, and now when he finally does fix himself, you don't believe it. You think it's a whole scam, a lie, how he's always the Joker, and how there's no way he can ever be anyone but the Joker. So, yeah. We also get this character called Neo Joker, which is that Harley Quinn doppelganger of the Suicide Squad equivalent, and yeah. Yeah, so Neo Joker isn't the Joker's daughter thing like they introduced in the main DC universe for a time, and everyone hated that. But, yeah. It was interesting to read this story. Like, the one twist that they did offer was that despite that really fits the Joker's insanity was, not only did he torture Jason Todd, he wanted to know who Batman was as a way for his magma opus game that he ever wanted to do with Batman if it came down to it. He doesn't kill Jason Todd like in the main DC universe. He lets him go. after Jason Todd broke down crying and saying how he wished he never met Bruce Wayne. Which means, here's the thing that makes it very interesting. There's going to be a sequel, and I am believing Jason Todd is going to show up in it eventually. But here's the difference with the Jason Todd of the original DC universe and this continuity. The difference is that they're showcasing that this Jason Todd isn't dead. Tim Drake is clearly not here. Which means that bitterness of being replaced isn't there. But a bitterness is formed how he wished he never met Bruce Wayne. And how this could actually give a new psychological edge to this version of Batman, which will be fairly interesting. But, yeah, one thing that Batman does at the end of the story is that he basically admits that he was wrong about a lot of things, how he wished he should have shared the technology with the GCPD, which was an actual big argument someone should have made years back. And, yeah. So, anyways, Batman give Gordon the keys to the new Batmobiles for the GCPD, part of this new GCPD protection force, a super cop basically. And he unmasks himself to earn Gordon and the people's trust. He says he's going to reveal his public identity, his super secret identity, and that's gonna be very interesting when they drop the sequel this year, because that's when I kept hearing the sequel is coming out this year. So that's going to be exciting to see how Batman operates with all this. So, yeah. It's just a very interesting take on Batman, in my opinion. It's not like they make Batman a full-fledged villain. More like he's an anti-hero who's becoming slowly anti-villainous. Like, he honestly believes he's doing the right thing, but really he's making the situation from bad to worse. And then it starts to get more and more apparent, like, this is deconstructing who Batman as a character really is, in my opinion. And this offers very interesting insight into Bruce Wayne, both in out of continuity and in continuity of the DC multiverse. So, yeah, I enjoyed this story. I wanted to talk about this for the 80th anniversary of Batman. That was a few days ago, but 80 years have come and gone. So, it's going to be fairly interesting with the next decade, too, or so, if we make it that long, if we don't blow ourselves up because we're stupid as a species for a variety of reasons. So, yeah. Enough about my pessimism. This were my thoughts on Batman White Knight. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.